Right now, there is a big problem inside of the architectural field that not many people are talking about. There are too many people getting inside of this field and not enough work to go around. And if you're watching this video, you're probably in one of these two categories. You're currently going to school for architecture, or you're considering going into college to study this degree path, or you've graduated and you're struggling to pay your bills because you cannot find work that pays you well enough inside of this field, or you can't find work at all. And if that's the case, I really recommend that you watch through this entirety of the video because I may have a solution for you. And that is taking your current existing skills inside of architecture and pivoting into a higher, well-positioned field such as land surveying. So if this sounds like something that interests you, please watch this entire video in full and pay attention to what I'm about to say. Now, this might seem a little strange, but I actually have beef with the architectural industry, and it's for a couple reasons, and that's what I'm going to cover today. And really what it boils down to is that it's a very negative cycle of people who are getting convinced that this is a path that they want to go forward with without realizing how much money you actually make inside of this field and how many people are also doing it at the exact same time. Simple supply and demand, it's not a good recipe. And so you have people who go through a 4-year college degree plus another 3 years of education to try to get their license. And even once they finally do that, they maybe will make $80,000 to $90,000 a year with that. I would say after 5 years, the most tenured of architects maybe break over the $110,000, $120,000 a year barrier. But for people who are promised as a good career slash education, it's really not the best field to be in right now. And so I hate to burst your bubble, but there are alternatives. And so one of the other problems that ends up happening inside of the architectural field is that you have individuals who get the license, they start their own company, and they do the same terrible thing to the people who get out of the degree. You need 3,500 approximately hours of apprenticeship working underneath another licensed architect. And so what ends up happening is you get paid dog shit. And so the same thing will happen once you become a licensed architect. You're going to start your own company and you're going to need drafters for you. So what do? You find graduate students who are trying to get their license and get those amount of hours, and you also pay them dog shit. It is the worst negative cycle I've ever seen inside of an industry. And so this video, I'm going to be talking about what you can actually do to pivot out of architecture and get into the field of land surveying and why you should do it. And so we're going to be going over why architecture is a perfect fit for land survey drafting, how land survey drafting offers a more career opportunities, more flexibility, and then also, most importantly, more stability. Thirdly, what tools and software you will need to master that might be similar to what you already know, so that way you're not just starting from scratch, and how this translates into a drafting career using the skills you already know without having to start completely over. So let's jump right in. So what is land survey drafting? Well, as an architect, you would know that's probably the first thing that you ever get before you work on a project. It is the survey that shows the property lines and the boundary of the lot that you're about to put the house on. And the cool thing about this is that you probably already know a little bit more about surveying than the average person in the population does, which is a good thing. So really, that's all we're basically figuring out is property lines and the stuff that exists within them. As an architect, if you're doing new development, that means that you're probably working with an empty lot. And so therefore, it's just boundary lines, empty lot, simple as that. And I want you to understand this very clearly. If we talk about the food chain and the hierarchy of who really has control over certain industries, let's just put it this way. The clients, your clients, are always looking to the architects as well as the engineers. Hey, I need you to get my architect plan done. I need you to get my engineering plan done. They're always looking to those two people to get their work done. Well, who is the architect and the engineer always begging to get their work done? Oh, Mr. Surveyor, can you please get my survey done? So who's really at the top of the food chain? I mean, let's just be honest. It's the surveyor. And so if you want to get to the point in time where, you are at the top of the food chain when it comes to the flow in which job sites are completed, surveying is the best place to be. There's not enough people who know how to draft in surveying, and so this is a great position for you. And then also, you're in a situation where it's a field that has so much longevity simply because of its positioning. So there's really 3 big reasons why architects are perfect to transition into land survey drafting. And for starters, you're already very knowledgeable on drafting in 3D space if you've done Revit before, but everybody starts with the basics, and that is 2D AutoCAD, which is, guess what? Exactly what we use inside of land surveying. More specifically, we use AutoCAD Civil 3D, which again is just the regular AutoCAD software, same commands that you're used to. It just has extra plugins built into it on top. It's no different though. It's just a couple new things that you have to learn in order to actually use the software, maybe like 2 or 3 things. But besides that, once you actually learn the surveying component of it, getting into land survey drafting is very straightforward using the architecture skills you already know, because you already know about surveys. It's what you use to make your architectural drafts in the first place. Number two, yeah, like I said, you already know the CAD software, and so you're familiar with it. And then finally, you guys are trained in precision and detail, and that is exactly what goes on these surveys. They're expensive documents, okay? Just like your work is considered expensive, although for some reason you guys don't get paid a fraction of what the job is worth, surveyors do. So you make really good money on the projects because they're worth a lot of money and people pay for them. And like I said, at the end of the day, who's really the top dog? Probably the surveyor, because that's who everyone else is waiting on. And so if you're the person that everyone relies on, you are always in demand, therefore you're always making money. So the main career benefits of becoming a land survey drafter and transitioning out of architectural drafting, primarily what you're probably most concerned about is demand and job security. Surveying is one of the oldest professions in the United States, and really what's going on right now is you have a license structure with licensed surveyors. By the way, there's only 45,000 licensed surveyors in the entire country. A lot of people work underneath them. Again, people who support them, field crew, right? Drafters. As drafters, we don't ever go out in the field. If you want to, you can, but we make all of our money staying inside and doing the drafting and using our brains to do the work. But with job security and with that demand means that you're always going to have more money coming in. And so that's what we're going to talk about in number two, which is better pay and faster growth inside of this field. I run a program that teaches people how to get into land survey drafting, and I have people who are in architecture who switch into it and literally double their pay in a 3-month time span simply because they change industries, right? It really doesn't matter at the end of the day what your skill set is. If you're not in a field that's conducive to you making money, what's the point of you being in that field in the first place? That's what I'm getting at. And then finally, you have more opportunity for freelance work and remote work. Within land survey drafting, the type of work that we do for clients is super recurring. Most of my students who land clients, and again, I used to be a freelance drafter inside of surveying. I had 2 clients. That's all I needed. You only got to need 2, you only need 2 clients to really make very good money inside of this industry, plus more if you really wanted to. But unlike architectural projects where you're dealing with clients directly, right? It's more of a B2B transaction. People are a lot more respectful. You get paid on time, and you don't have to worry where your next job is going to come from because the flow is always there. Architecture projects, there's holdup all the time. Your lifespan of a project is significantly longer than a survey. Surveys, residential could take about an hour for most drafters, and then some bigger commercial projects could be a couple days, couple weeks at most. But we like to stick with the residential stuff because it pays out a lot quicker. And so that's what I'm talking about, is that if you want to get into a field where now you're not stuck working for a boss, right? You can go and become a freelancer and make even more money. Land surveying is much more conducive for this as opposed to architecture. You still can do this in architecture, but for most architectural drafters, I recommend you have to become like a celebrity designer. What's the difference between someone on Fiverr who you pay $500 for to make a architectural draft versus a celebrity designer that you pay $23,000 for? Nothing. It's just their branding and imaging. And so that's really what your number one job is as a freelance architectural designer, is to literally just get really good at marketing and branding yourself so that way you can charge those higher prices, because it's subjective. Surveying, it's objective. It's a very fixed rate for these jobs, and they pay a lot more on average than the rates that you would get inside of architecture. You don't have to worry about clients coming and going. You stick with one, you potentially have them for years, and acquisition of clients is a lot easier because the demand is so much higher. So what softwares do you need to know to get into this field? Well, primarily it is AutoCAD, Civil 3D. Like I said, again, you're already used to regular AutoCAD. With Civil 3D, it's just extra plugins on top of it. Main things that we use is the prospectors tool, so that way we can manipulate points and point groups. We deal with GPS points. That's the most important part of what we do inside of surveying, is importing GPS points and using that to align our data and line work to make the survey. But once you can do that, it's very straightforward. Other things would be surfaces as well as databases. And then the final thing would be field to finish. But again, these are all very advanced techniques. You don't need to learn any of those in order to just get a survey draft done. And so if you know how to just get the survey draft done, you can already start making money within this profession, either landing a job in person because the demand is so high, or as a freelancer, making even more money than that. And then finally would be Carlson Survey or MicroStation. Again, some survey companies like this, a lot of Department of Transportation, DOT places. If you know MicroStation, you can make so much money simply because no one knows how to do it. And so it's a great opportunity where, hey, I know MicroStation, hey, I know survey drafting, right? There are companies that get hired out by, giant survey companies get hired out by Department of Transportation in certain states, and the DOT says, oh, we can only get the jobs done or have our vendors do the jobs for us in MicroStation. And the vendor says, great, survey company, great, we'll do all of it in MicroStation. They go out in the field, they collect the data, they send the drafts off to somebody else. So it's 2 subcontractors, and the third subcontractor is making crazy money all because they know MicroStation. And so that is a really good investment if you want to get into that. Other surveyors who don't want to spend the time in Civil 3D and don't like the license structure, they'll invest in something called Carlson Survey. But I think if you can get a MicroStation, going down the FDOT route is a really great way to get paid. So how do you get started? Very straightforward. It's only going to take you 3 steps to do so. Number 1, it's going to be learning how to draft in land surveying. Most of it is really conceptual and a little bit is practice, but for the most part, you have to learn geomatics, the public land system, and surveying theory. Those 3 things and you're ready to go. Do a couple sample jobs and you're just fine. Learn Civil 3D and work on some projects, and then finally, go to a company and try to get hired. And if you want to go freelance, market your services and do the exact same thing on the open market. So if you're an architect and this sounds like something that interests you, I have a literal full roadmap and guide that goes over how to break into this industry and get either hired in person or as a freelancer making really good money. And I run one of the only programs in the world for land survey drafting. And so if you want to get into this, go ahead and click the description, click on that YouTube link and watch that whole video, and we'll see you on the other side. Thanks.